The second round is cast. And what's interesting about this is obviously at the Oscars, which is what we're talking about, out of all these films, Catherine Zeta-Jones is the only one to have won her category for acting. So does that automatically mean it has the best cast?
Well, not only was she the only one to win her category, she was also up against someone else from her film in that same category. It was her and Queen Latifah both nominated. Mm-hmm. So usually when two actors from the same film are nominated in the same category, it divides the votes. And it didn't in this instance.
Because she's Catherine Zeta-Jones.
She's amazing in the movie, as is Queen Latifah, as is Renee Zellweger, also nominated.
You're on a roll, Dan. Keep going.
I know. Well, okay. This was... I will. Thank you very much. This was the year that the John C. Reilly Award came into being, which we all know is the honorary award if you're in 3 Best Pictures. And it was 2002. He was in The Hours, Gangs of New York, and Chicago. Oh, my... It's worth thinking about.
If John C. Reilly is in your film, you're more likely to get nominated
that at
for an
least
Oscar.
boosts it. Absolutely. 3 in 1 year. Come on.
I mean, actually, this is something that I want to talk about. Do we usually think that the Oscars get things right? Is that something that the Oscars usually do? Very straight in. No.
No,
they never do.
They gave Casablanca Best Picture.
Right, we've got to get this beef out of the way.
Listen, I'm going to apologize.
What happened to you while you were watching it?
Nothing. It's just
That's the problem.
Exactly, yeah.
boring.
Right, well, by the end of this, let's reassess.
Okay.
Because I'm going to put forth some convincing arguments,
I'm listening.
hopefully.
Go on, well, talk to me about Casablanca now then. Talk about the Humphrey Bogart and what's her face in Casablanca.
What's a face?
Yeah.
Rude.
Whoa.
What's her name?
Ingrid Bergman.
That's it.
Like one of the greatest actresses who ever lived, but whatever. What's the face? Wow. What's so interesting about Casablanca, though, is one of those movies that made those stars. You know, Humphrey Bogart, up until this point, he'd been in The Maltese Falcon, so he was pretty famous already, but he was mostly like, you know, the edgy film noir guy, like seedy, like coming out of the shadows to stab you, man, Humphrey Bogart. But Casablanca established him as a romantic lead, and that's what really kicked his career off, and he became the highest paid actor at the time. And then that's how you get Bogart and Bacall, which if there's anything hotter on screen than Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, it is Humphrey Bogart and Laura Bacall. And then you have that contrast with Ingrid Bergman, who, this is also the movie that just completely kicked off her career and made her the one of the greatest actresses that ever lived.
And they do, when you think about that kind of classical Hollywood movie, they do effervesce on screen. They are beautiful. And
the lighting on her is ridiculous as well.
Obscene. They're absolutely stunning. It's just drawn into their eyes. Neither of them, however, are named in the rap section of Madonna's Vogue, and I think that goes against Casablanca. So,
Joe, I mean, the cast in The Departed is immense. There's so many stars in it, and they're all... I mean, do you have a favourite?
I mean, for me, Leonardo DiCaprio stands out. But obviously Matt Damon and Jack Nicholson are both amazing. They both got nominated for Best Supporting Actor and both didn't win due to the fact that Dan said before that it divided and neither of them was Catherine Zeta-Jones. But I
she
feel
would have
like
been great in it, though. And that's why Chicago is so brilliant.
I just feel like that's why this movie's so strong, because it's just got a cast that everyone wants. It's got actors that everyone wants in their movies. It puts Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon together when they're like at the height of their power, which is great, especially when they're directed by Martin Scorsese. So,
I mean, let's talk about everyone's accents as well, because they're varying.
Can we talk about Ray Winston?
Yeah, let's talk about Ray Winston to start with. Thank you very much.
I have another objection,
accents.
but I'll put that forward later on.
Ray Winston's Boston accent is something. Even Martin Sheen struggles sometimes, but I think my favourite aspect of the cast, obviously the stars are the stars, but I really like Alec Baldwin and Mark.
Oh yeah.
Marky Mark.
Oh, I see. I don't like Marky Mark at all.
I think he's so funny.
It's a one-note character the whole way through.
That's fine with me.
And that's
it's
so
so funny.
The characters are so strong. Like, also Martin Sheen. Don't ever come for Martin Sheen again. That is your president.
Martin Sheen struggles with that accent a little bit.
He struggles with nothing?
He's the president of the United
Thank
States.
you very much.
The thing with Mark Wahlberg in this movie is that I cannot believe that he's existing within the same universe. Like, he's walked off the set of Ted. Like, he brings such a different energy to the movie, you know, and you're having him with Leo and Matt Damon, who are taking everything so seriously, and he's like,
Was
who
Mark
are you? I'm the guy
nominated?
who's doing his freaking job.
I
And
thought
it's like,
Mark was the
calm down.
only one nominated, but I maybe read it wrong.
Was he nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this
Yeah.
film? He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's really funny. But my favourite bit in the whole thing is when Alec Baldwin asks him if somebody wants a cigarette, and he goes, do you want a cigarette? I bet you don't smoke, do you?
Yeah,
One of
you
them health
fitness
nuts?
freak.
Go fuck yourself.
that
Like, just
movie
doesn't
that
let him
I-
have a conversation.
But I think the
so
other thing
good.
about Marky Mark is that he's on his own other thing, doing his whole other show, while Leo is giving the most strained
Yeah.
performance ever.
I believe all that stress.
Exactly, and Matt Damon is playing it with this blank face, and Pacino's off doing not Pacino, sorry,
Jack Nicholson.
that's the one, Jackie. He's off doing his own thing in Crazy Town, and then it's like, okay, Mark, I'll see you in the next scene.
He's like, you know, those air things with the arms. He just comes into
A
every
wobbly,
scene,
waving,
like,
inflatable arm, flaving
he's
tube
the
man.
inflatable
Wahlberg.
tube man coming into every scene, like, hi.
Joe, do you have a favourite performance in it, if you can pick?
No, Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is my favorite. Like, everything he does in it is believable, and I just feel his pain in it, where he's come from a bad family and he wants to be different. He wants to get into the police force and make a change, and because of that history with his bad family, they just say no, and it pushes him down a different path, and then he just ends up being like this broken guy who's trying to do right but is caught in a tough situation, and it just doesn't work for him in the end. Like, I just think Leo is
Are we in spoiler town?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Because the moment when he is shot square in
Yeah.
the head is a visceral reaction because of everything you just
Yeah.
said. It's
Yeah.
like his
You're
performance
constantly
is so
hoping that
strong.
he's going to get away with it.
Exactly.
Yes,
and
and
then
that's why I love
suddenly
it.
it's like, oh, you were so close. You were so close. And I feel devastated for him.
Joe, is it your favourite Leo performance?
Yes, I'm gonna say that the only other Leo performance I feel like I feel was up with it was what's gonna be crazy is the Man in the Iron Mask, which I also love. Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow,
know,
what
it's
a pick.
crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I
Yeah,
love that.
well, my favourite Leo performance is Catch Me If You Can, which came out
That is
Chicago year
That is
and
tough.
wasn't even nominated at the Oscars.
Because they're
Chicago
crazy.
is so good. Where was its musical number?
We
Where
already
was Leo's
established that the
fussy
Oscars
neck?
don't get things right. We said that at the top of the show, right?
Except when they do
Honestly.
for 6 wins for Chicago.
Yeah, well, yeah. Dan, is there anything else you want to say about the cast in Chicago? I feel like we haven't had much time on that yet.
Just that it's not only these are all actors who are being asked to do a hell of a lot. Of course, in all of these movies, they're being asked to do a lot. Carrying the emotional heft of The Departed is incredible. You know, as I said, the effervescence of Casablanca. But these are actors being asked to sing, dance, and act in taking something that's like hyper camp, and I'll talk about this later, but it's a hyper camp musical restrained for on screen. And Catherine Zeta-Jones actually had a haircut. Originally, they wanted to have long hair, but she wanted a bob to show that she was the one doing all the dancing. So they went into intense rehearsal process, and they carried all of it off. And none of them having to pick up slack for anybody else. They're all hitting it off, you know, the mark. And we've seen so many musicals where actors come in, naming no names, Russell Crowe, and maybe don't give their best vocal performance.
Pierce
but there
Brosnan.
isn't a single... Indeed, with the whole shirt rip, although I will defend Mamma Mia till death. But in this film, every single one of them is firing on all cylinders. And I just think it is an incredible classic. They belong in that same conversation, I think, as Bogarts and Bergman's in terms of the classic performance.
It's nice to see something rewarded for an aspect of performance that usually isn't sort of reward, like the idea of like being on screen and crying or doing a big dramatic scene is very easy to be able to go, oh, that's good acting. But to see the dedication from somebody like Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's going to learn everything like that and perform completely
Gere
by
tap
herself.
dancing.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, be able to learn an entire new skill like that. That's why I think like Ryan Gosling in La La Land like learned to play piano. Like, that's something to do with his performance that you might not know. You'd be like, oh, he must be able to play piano, or it's a double. No, he learned how to do it, and I think that's the same thing here, is learning an entire new skill for this performance.
And you know that these actors are good. You know John C. Reilly's good. And you know that Queen Latifah as a rapper is great. And then they show up on the screen and they show you something else, and you're like, okay, thank you. Keep that on celluloid forever.